Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name's Jenna, and I work for Emerging Destinations. We represent cool companies in cool places, and we also represent the Guyana Tourism Authority in North America. Today, I'm being joined by Nicola Balram. She's in Georgetown, and she's going to talk to us about one of my favorite topics about Guyana, which is the 6 different influences that make up the culture and heritage of the country, and really, in my opinion, what makes it such a magical place. So she's going to talk to us about that today. Before we get too far into that, I'm going to give a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar will be recorded, and we will send the recording out to everybody next week. So if you do have to step away or answer a call, whatever it may be, don't worry, we will send this out to you next week with our webinar follow-up. It'll also be posted on our Emerging Destinations YouTube channel and our Emerging Destinations website. So there's lots of places to find the recording if you do happen to miss that email or you aren't able to stay for the whole thing. Also, we would love that you participate. So throughout Nicola's presentation, if you have a comment or a question comes up, please feel free to type that over to us using the GoToWebinar control panel. I will ask Nicola as many of those questions as possible at the end of the session, of course, time permitting. If there are questions that I'm unable to get to, I'll get Nicola to answer those and we'll send them out to you in our webinar follow-up as well. So if we don't get to them, don't worry, you'll still get an answer on that. I think that's all that I have to say, so I'm going to hand things over to Nicola.
Thanks, Jenna, and good afternoon, everyone. Like Jenna mentioned, she's from Emerging Destinations and represents cool places and cool destinations. This is her email address at the bottom if you have any questions for her. So today we'll be talking about culture and heritage, the 6 influences that make up Guyana. And before I start the presentation, I'd like to just show a little video that kind of gives you a better understanding of what it is. So just hang tight.
Guyana's heart lies with its beautifully exotic inland regions, which are in stark contrast to the hustle and bustle of Georgetown and the coast. Guyana's capital owes much of its distinctive architecture to the colonization of the French, Dutch, and then the British. From the impressive town museums to the Grand Cathedral, reputedly the tallest freestanding wooden building in the world. The city's markets are vibrant with the flurry of everyday life, and the beautiful botanical gardens offer a tranquil retreat. Guyana is the only country in South America where English is the official language, with a rich diversity of people. And on the coast, there's a distinctive Caribbean culture. The country's strong indigenous culture is evident as soon as you travel inland from Georgetown or along the lower Essequibo. Here, Fort Island, home to the Dutch government in the 18th century, is built on one of 365 islands on this vast waterway, the 3rd largest river in South America. The river's remote feel is punctuated by various island resorts with inviting beaches. Deeper into the interior, there are welcoming community lodges where you can explore the rainforest or move south towards the rolling savannah. Here you really get a feel for the wonderful eco-projects that are happening in the country. It also gives you a chance to meet people from the 9 indigenous groups who will welcome you to this unique and fascinating culture.
That is definitely one of my favorite videos that we have of the destination. So to go a little bit more in depth, my name is Nicola Balram and I work for the Guyana Tourism Authority here in Georgetown, Guyana. This is just an image of me to give you a little bit of a visual. And for this presentation, it's the first time I'm in my traditional Indian wear because for me, I am East Indian and European mix. Guyana is a rare kind of place, one where you can find nature's beating heart. Now, we're a place that's filled with pristine rainforests and vast savannas, but what really makes an experience truly remarkable here is the culture and the heritage of the country that's engraved in all of these landscapes. So that's what we're going to touch on today. But just to give you a little bit of the overview of the destination. For those that don't know, Guyana is a small South American country just about the size of Idaho, located just below the Caribbean Sea and sandwiched between Venezuela, Brazil, and Suriname. We're the only country in South America where English is the official native language. So this means that you'll have no trouble speaking with our indigenous peoples and a lot of our locals. To get to Guyana, you can travel through some of the main hubs from the US, New York, Toronto, and Miami are the biggest ones. We know that during the time of COVID, our airports were actually closed from March 18th. However, we actually just opened up in October 12th, and these are some of the airlines that are right now and will be serving Guyana soon. Right now from the US, we do have American Airlines. Copa Airlines will be starting with connections through Panama. Caribbean Airlines will be starting shortly. Eastern Airlines and JetBlue is scheduled to start in April next year. So this gives you a little bit of the exact dates that all of these flights will start to serve Guyana. And just to get the big elephant out of the room, right now, our COVID situation, we are still doing a phased approach to our opening. While our international borders are open for travel, we do have some restrictions locally and traveling around. So we currently do have a curfew that's in effect from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. every day. Businesses and hotels are allowed to be open. For restaurants, you can do outdoor dining. However, indoor dining is still prohibited at this time. However, we are looking to have another update in November, so hopefully these changes, these protocols will also be changed. For someone traveling to Guyana right now, you are required to get a PCR test that says negative no later than 7 days before traveling. If you do get that test done within 3 days, once you arrive in Guyana, you are allowed to leave the airport. However, if that test is done between 4 to 7 days, you will have to do another test upon arrival in Guyana. You can find more information on GuyanaTravel.gy, which is updated with our new protocols for traveling to Guyana. So what is the Guyana tourism product? We know that Guyana is the place where a lot of our product is embedded and immersed, and a lot of things can happen in one experience. But to better understand it at a glance, we have 5 main elements: nature and wildlife, active exploration or adventure travel, birding, conservation or SAVE, which is scientific, academic, volunteer, and educational travel, or what I'm going to touch on today, culture and heritage. Now, Guyana is nothing without the land of the people that made it up. So we have 6 main ethnic groups that populate the land, and I'll touch more on this when you go through the history of Guyana. But some of the more common faces you're going to see on your travels are those from African descent, East Indian descent, and of course our indigenous peoples. Our other 3 groups are Portuguese and European, and our other one is Chinese. So how did they come to Guyana? A lot of our culture is embedded in the history of how our country came to be. In the earlier years, Guyana was first established or first discovered by European settlers. At that period of time, ownership of Guyana was fought between the British, Dutch, French, and Spanish. Eventually, the British won, and we were termed British Guyana. When the British came to Guyana, they then started to develop sugar plantations, which gets our famous El Dorado gold and El Dorado rum and Demerara sugar. Now, to work on these plantations, they were looking at different people from around the world. So they actually first brought African slaves here to Guyana to work. But when the slaves were freed, they started to bring indentured immigrants. And these were from India, China, and Portugal. And these are just some of the images from that period of time when they were bringing persons here to work in the plantations, and then Guyana developing as a country during that time. One of the great things about the history was that when we were discovered by our European settlers, our indigenous peoples were never forced to work on the lands. They actually reverted a little bit more into the rainforest and still keep a lot of the cultures that you'll later learn that we see today. This includes basket weaving and even the traditional way that they live in these little huts that we call benabs. When Guyana gained independence in 1966 and then became a republic country in 1970, it started to develop a little bit more as an independent nation. From here, you can see that a lot of the colonial architecture that was developed and built during the period of when we're not an independent country still remain. And later on, you'll learn that some of it still remains up to this day. These are scenes from some of the popular streets in central Georgetown, and you can see the image on the top right-hand corner is St. George's Cathedral, which is the tallest wooden building in the world. On the bottom right-hand corner, it's our Town Hall. And the two on the left are Water Street, which is one of our popular streets here in central Georgetown. After we got independence and Guyana started to develop as an independent nation, a lot of the things that we as a country still hold true was in our unique architecture. So a lot of the forts that the Dutch started to build here in Guyana were from their period of time when they fought the British for ownership of the country. Some of these ruins still remain, such as this one in Fort Zelandia, which you can experience in the Essequibo River, the third largest river in South America. You can learn a lot about the history of our people through a lot of the monuments that's found in Georgetown and other places along the coastline. You can see towards the left hand, this is a statue of someone named Coffee, who actually fought for the freedom of the slaves. At the top is the indentured immigrant image, which highlights a lot of the Indian indentured immigrants that came from India. And you can see a lot of the architecture that's still in our gardens and our commitment to conservation and safe travel. Some of the architecture we had back in those days still remain today, including the St. George's Cathedral, which is found towards the left-hand side, and our Stabroek Market, which is one of the local areas where you can get local fresh fruits and vegetables, but the style of the building is still there and a big sight for many people to see up to this day. Another aspect that touches on our culture are some of our events. So we want to share with you a lot of the events and holidays we have in Guyana and where it came from. Most of our events are developed based off of what the entire country went through, and also a celebration of the various type of ethnic groups and religions here in the country. Our Indians are celebrated through Pagwa, which is Holi, or Diwali. These are both Hindu-centric festivals. Pagwa is celebrated earlier in the year, around March or April, and it's a time when many people come out to play with colored powder and water. Diwali, which is celebrated later in the year, is focused on lighting little lamps that we call diyas, which is meant to signify good over evil and welcome the good spirit into your home. Our Christian brothers and sisters usually celebrate Easter and Christmas. Easter is a big thing here in Guyana. It's all celebrated a weekend in April. The weekend does change from time to time, and it's celebrated from Friday all the way up to Monday, which we get Good Friday, Easter Sunday, and Easter Monday. Many families use this time to get together and have a good meal, and of course, kite flying. And a lot of the locals make and sell kites here in country. And then on the Sunday and Monday evenings, we go to the big open spaces, such as what we call a seawall, and some of our national parks to go and fly these kites. Emancipation Day is something that's celebrated on 1st of August every year, and it celebrates the freedom of our slaves from our indentured immigrants and before our indentured immigrants. This is celebrated to remember the African culture. It's usually celebrated by them getting dressed in their traditional wear and also cooking and wearing and dancing a lot of their older traditions. Many of them still remain true to this day. On Christmas, Guyana is celebrated a little bit different than the North American market. We don't get snow here, but we definitely have a vibrant spirit. A lot of the streets are lit with Christmas and fairy lights, and we do have special dishes that celebrate this occasion. When our indentured immigrants came from India, not only Hindus came, but also Muslims. Two holidays in Guyana are dedicated public holidays to our Muslim brothers and sisters. These are Eid al-Adha as well as Yom Nabi, which celebrates their cultures and their traditions. Outside of those that are tied to the ethnic background as well as the religious background, we do have some celebrations here in Guyana that are for everyone. Although we all celebrate everyone's holidays, there are some that are tied just towards what makes us locally Guyanese. And one of them is Republic Day, which celebrates when Guyana became a republic nation in 1970, as well as independence in 1966. And both of these take a form of colorful costumes and dancing and just having a great time in country. The first one, which celebrates our republic status, is called Mashramani. It's an Amerindian word or an indigenous word that means celebration after hard work, and it's celebrated on February 23rd. And our independence is celebrated on May 26th of every year, and we have what we call the Guyana Carnival, which is similar to the carnival you would see in Trinidad and Brazil. But both of these days and these celebrations represent how far we have come as a people and a celebration of life for us. Now, no exploration to any country or any discussion about culture is complete without delving into food, which is a big part of the Guyanese culture. Guyana is a place that's found sandwiched between the South American nations as well as the Caribbean nations. And our history is very Caribbean based. Now, going off of some of the way that these different cultures came to Guyana, it also influenced our food. Here are some of the Indian dishes that you can experience in country. We do have curries, which is a very popular dish. It's based with garam masala, jeera, as well as curry powder. And for this, we have various types of meats that you would cook into the dish, or you can even have vegetables cooked into the dish. This is paired lovely with what we will call dal puri, which is a form of naan or flat bread that has little bits of split peas mixed into it. Some of our popular snacks include something called pulaurie, or the top left image here is baigani, which is an eggplant fried in a split pea batter and then dunked in a mango sauce that we call sour. And one of the sweet dishes is gulab jamun, which is found on the bottom left-hand corner here. And it's very similar to a donut hole, but it's little fried balls of milk that is soaked in a sweet and light sugary drench. Our indigenous peoples and our Portuguese ancestors also influence our dishes heavily. On the top left-hand corner, you'll see garlic pork. This is pork that is marinated and left with garlic, thyme, and other herbs and spices that are found and grown locally here in Guyana. This is also a very popular Christmas dish. On the bottom left-hand corner is called pepper pot. This is from our indigenous brothers and sisters and their culture, and it is usually any meat that is stewed or cooked with a byproduct of the cassava root, which they use to make something called casrib, and this gives it that brownish color. Both of these dishes are actually the main dishes in Guyana for our Christmas celebrations. On the right-hand corner, you'll see Tumapot and cassava bread. Tumapot is the version of pepper pot that's usually made with fish or chicken, and it's made from the cassava water instead of the cassava sauce, which casrib is. And then they use the cassava that is grated down and fried to make a flat bread that they call cassava bread. Our Chinese ancestors brought chow mein, which many of you might know, or lau mein. But in Guyana, we do make it slightly different. It tastes just as delicious, I promise. However, we do add a lot of our local vegetables and ingredients to it, and a lot of our local spices. From our African culture, we do have something called cook-up. It is a mixed dish with different types of beans and rice and seasoned with a lot of our local herbs and spices here. You can add different types of meat to it, such as beef or pork or chicken. And one of the spices that goes in every Guyanese dish is called pepper. The top right-hand corner shows one of their favorite desserts, which is called conky. This is mashed plantain or pumpkin that's then spiced and served and cooked in a banana leaf. Now, while a lot of our dishes are influenced by a lot of the people that came to Guyana throughout history, there are some dishes that are just uniquely Guyanese. And when I say it's uniquely Guyanese, it doesn't come from one particular ethnic group or one particular period of time. It just comes from the Guyanese culture, the South America and the Caribbean mix of the cultures. So on the top left hand, we have plantain. Here we like to usually fry it either in small round circles or long strips like this, and it's a great snack. And the top right hand corner, you have the one spice that goes in every Guyanese dish, and this is hot pepper. The actual name of this is wiri wiri pepper, which is one of the hottest peppers here in Guyana and in the world. But this is only a part of what you find in the local markets, which you can see at the bottom of the screen on the left hand side, that has all of the local fresh fruits and vegetables that we use in many of our dishes. One of the national dishes of Guyana is actually called bake and saltfish, and that is the one on the bottom right hand corner. Bake is it's a dough that's cooked and knead, and then it's fried in hot oil. Many people do call it float as well. It does puff up and has a nice airy feel on the inside and a crisp outside, and it's paired with fish from our local rivers and waterways that is dried and salted, so it has a little bit of a crunch, and it's usually prepared with a lot of our spices and local produce here to give it that extra flavor. One of the best ways to have it is that you cut the bake in half and you stuff inside, similar to a pita bread, and that's how you have the dish. Now, a lot of what makes Guyana special for a lot of persons that travel here is not only our culture of our people that come together to call Guyana home, but especially our indigenous culture, which has a very special place in everyone's heart. Our indigenous culture is very focused on conservation, sustainability, and primarily in the rainforest and savanna regions. So it's very removed from the coast and the vibrancy of the city of Georgetown, where most of our population is today. In this culture, you see they actually live with the rainforest, they live with the wildlife, and a lot of the travel experiences that locals and international travelers, you and your clients will be able to enjoy is learning from these people why this country means so much to them. A lot of their culture from the beginning is ingrained into protecting and preserving the environment and working with them. And you can see from these images too that many of the things that they did when Guyana was first discovered or first became Guyana, they still hold true today, such as weaving and making and shooting bow and arrows and looking after the environment. They also do have their own unique way of cooking certain dishes, even certain produce that's very unique to that part of the country, down south than the top half, including how they roast corn in the sun. And they do have something called petroglyphs in some areas, which shows the drawings from their ancestors, explaining a little bit more of the history of the country. Now, I know we touched a lot about things that are in different areas that make up culture, and the way that a lot of these 6 different unique cultures came together to form one. So that's why I thought for the end of this presentation, we'd include something that there are things that are just uniquely Guyanese. Similar to the food, that it doesn't come from one particular area. There are just some customs here that no matter where you grew up, what parts of Guyana you grew up in, or what ethnic group you fall into, they're just some things that make Guyana you and that you make Guyana for. So some of these things include hanging out on our seawall. This is about a 6-foot wall that protects our northern shore against the Atlantic Ocean, because Guyana is actually below sea level. But for a lot of our locals, we do like to use this space to run, to walk, to go with some friends, and to even rollerblade. And I know right now during the COVID times, it's still an open space and COVID protocols do have to be observed when going here, but it's definitely a great place. One of the slangs that we use here to hang out, it's called liming or bubbling. So if you do come here and hear people say we're gonna lime on the seawall, it's more like let's go hang out on the seawall. One of our favorite snacks and dishes is mango, which is a fruit that Guyana is well known for and can be found anywhere in the country. And we do like a little spice and heat here. And I think that's because of our Caribbean influences. And so even growing up to this day, you always have mango with salt and pepper, or pickled mango, which is the photo on the top right. A lot of our school experiences in the city area, in the more country area, as well as the rainforest and savanna areas with our Indigenous kids, we all do have to wear school uniforms all the way up to about 12th grade, 11th or 12th grade. So this is something that all kids do in Guyana, and it's just something that makes you traditionally Guyanese. And the last point on this slide is just our love for the environment and culture. Even if you grew up more in the city center of Georgetown, you still are exposed to a lot more nature and wildlife than many people in the world in many major cities. So this has been ingrained in us from since a young age. Our Indigenous peoples they are the stewardship of this, but a lot of the persons in the coast and in the more urban areas also do share that similar love. I wanted to close this off by just saying Guyana is a place where social distancing is built into the landscape, and culture and conservation is a natural part of our tourism product. And I thought, what better image to end it off with than Kaieteur Falls? It doesn't necessarily speak to the culture and heritage aspect. This is one of our highest attractions here in Guyana. It's about 5 times higher than Niagara Falls, and it has no rails, no bars. So anytime you do get to travel here, it's just you and your small group of maybe 5 to 8 persons that get to experience this all to yourself. Now, we at the Guyana Tourism Authority actually did a series called Why I Love Guyana last year, and we'll be continuing it this year. But we thought, what better way, besides me telling you, to hear about why a lot of our locals love Guyana. So I'll play one video. This is Serenity Grady. She's a local radio announcer and businesswoman here in Guyana and has a love for her country. Do enjoy.
One of my favorite things about Guyana is our cultural diversity. I think we have so much to appreciate and share, and it's one of the many things that contribute to making Guyana a very culturally rich country. It's hard to have a favorite place in Guyana because everywhere is so beautiful and unique in its own way, but my favorite types of places are those that are zen, very zen-like, lush vegetation, animals, flowers, sunsets, fresh air, and the like. When I go to places like that, I just want to unwind. I want to get rid of all of the gadgets and just sit down there, have a nice meal, sip on something, you know, and just relax, just take in the fresh air and just enjoy the beauty and nature of Guyana. So two of my most favorite Zen-like places are those creeks on the Linden Highway, not the very popular ones, the ones that you have to drive a little bit further to find. I think that's the epitome of Zen. And when you're going to Berbice, you know, those very long drives and those places where there aren't any houses, you have pastures with cattle and coconut farms. Those are my favorite places, very therapeutic for me. My favorite part about our Indian culture is the very rich culture and heritage that we've brought to Guyana in the form of our festivals, dress, cuisine, and everything else. My favorite Indian dish would hands down have to be anything with dal, coconut choka, chicken curry, and loud pepper. Dal to me is everything. But technically, dal is an Indian dish and it's made using peas. There are very different types of ways to do it. My favorite way of doing it is, not many persons know this, but it's the bunjal dal, where you fry everything up before and then you put water into the dal and you cook it. I love Guyana because of the hospitable nature of everyone. The warm hospitality that everyone brings to this country is what I absolutely love. My name is Serenity Grady and I love Guyana.
So for more information, you can visit our website at www.guyanatourism.com. It's the official destination website of Guyana and operated and monitored by us at the Guyana Tourism Authority. You can also visit exploreguyana.org, which is operated by the Tourism Hospitality Association of Guyana, which is a membership organization here in country. You can learn more about statistics at statisticsguyana.gov.gy. Go invest at invest.gov.gy for the official website for Go Invest Guyana, which gives you about investment opportunities here in country. And the website of the international airport that services most of our flights from North America is cgairports-gy.com. This is our team in country here in Guyana, which is supported by our extended market representation teams. And from us, for new airlines and new operators, you can get support for providing key information, coordinating travel-related events, joint habitation, advertisement, adventures, familiarization trips as well. I'll turn it back over to you now, Jenna, for any questions we may have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that presentation, Nicola. I'm just going to say one quick thing before we get into these questions. Now is the time as well, if you do have questions, to type them through, and I'll ask Nicola those in a minute. I just wanted to say I got really excited at the beginning of the presentation that I completely forgot to introduce our portfolio to you. So I'm sorry about that, Nicola. I saw your slide go through after, and I guess I was just so excited to hear about everything you had to say. I completely forgot. So of course, we do have a large portfolio outside of the GTA. So we do represent companies in Africa, South America, and we have a small ship polar cruising portfolio as well. We have two new additions to our portfolio, which is the Sopa Lodges and Anantara as well. Those are both in Africa. So if you do have any questions about any of the other companies we represent, as Nicola mentioned before, my email address is jenna@emergingdestinations.com. I did just want to mention all that before we kind of wrapped up here with some Q&A, because I couldn't believe that I completely forgot to say that. So now I will ask some questions to you, Nicola. So the first one I have is, how has COVID affected Guyana?
Well, in terms of travel and tourism, we were immediately shut down pretty early on. So Guyana put a ban on international travel from March 18th. And if you can recall, I think COVID-19 was listed as a pandemic just about 5 to 6 days earlier. So that has so far helped to keep our numbers small, but like everywhere else, there is some level of community spread that is going on here. However, because we still have those small numbers, we are still taking that phased approach to reopening. Wearing masks and social distancing in public is required. Right now, many places are still on a rotational basis if they're not working from home. And as a tourism industry, we have taken this time to work with our local sector as much as we can to get them ready for a safe reopening, which means a bigger emphasis on health and sanitation, working with our government partners as well as our private sector partners to ensure that the airlines, the airports, everything you would need when you're traveling to Guyana is as safe as possible, and there is that accountability on all ends as well.
Awesome, thank you for that little update. So from which countries are visitors normally coming from? Just generally, I know that's a very broad question, but where do you see the most visitors coming from to Guyana?
A lot of our travelers and visitors actually come from our main source markets, which are North America, more specifically the US and Canada, the UK, and some of the supporting regions around there, like the Netherlands and Germany, and the German-speaking markets are also big travelers here to Guyana. We also do get a lot of the diaspora traveler, which are Guyanese who were born here, they have family here, but they no longer live here, are based in the US, predominantly in New York, as well as Toronto in Canada. So we do see them come back during those Christmas time and maybe the Easter weekend, and sometimes during the summer months as well. And they come to visit family and take a lot of the adventures here in country as well.
And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the presentation, but we just have a question. So Americans can enter now? Just if you could clarify that.
Yes. So on October 12th, our airports are officially open. We do have commercial flights, and it is allowed for any traveler to come into Guyana. So you will have to, whether you're an American traveler or returning Guyanese, if you are from Canada or any other country, you do have to follow those guidelines in terms of getting tested before. And when you are in country, if you have a test that is older than 3 days, you will have to get a secondary test. However, but all flights are now accepting all travelers. Currently, Eastern Airlines is flying from New York. Within the next week, Copa Airlines will start its flight from Panama, and on November 1st, American Airlines will start flying as well. We do have Trans-Guyana Airways, which is flying from Barbados.
All right, that's great. There's a few options opening up for anybody who wants to go to Guyana. How many days, Nicola, would you say is an ideal vacation to see the main highlights of Guyana? Again, I know that's a difficult question to answer because there's so many great things to see in Guyana, but if you had to give a number.
If I had to give a number, especially if it might be your first trip or first time and doing highlights, one, I would say no less than 10 days, but ideally anywhere between 2 weeks to about 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks will be great. But you can see a lot of things within 10 to 14 days.
Great. So we do have a couple more questions now. Again, if anybody needs to pop off, this will all be recorded and you'll receive the recording. But I will ask you just a couple more before we wrap up. How are you handling physical distancing with, for example, the Parika speedboats and the minibuses?
So right now, the minibuses and any form of public transportation are allowed only to have about 75% capacity. So they do still have to follow the social distancing rules, which is now 3 to 6 feet apart. You do have to wear a mask while in those transportation. And we do have, our law enforcement is also advised to enforce when persons are not following the social distancing rules.
All right, so I think just time-wise, let's wrap it up there for today. I will mention that we do have a webinar in November. That's going to be a great one. We're going to be hosting it on fishing in Guyana, which to me is another topic that I love. So if you do have any clients that are big anglers, or if you yourself are interested in that, then it's going to be a really interesting one. And we're hoping to have a guest speaker on for that as well. So please join us for that. I'll include the information in our webinar follow-up for the registration link. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today to learn a little bit more about Guyana and something that truly makes the Guyanese experience complete once you know where all the different influences and heritages come from to create the country that it is today. So thank you for that great presentation, Nicola.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks everyone.
Until next time, thank you. Stay safe.